Obviously, we just went through a massive recession. What industries do you think are just recession proof? You talk about laundromats and car washes all the time. What industries do you look at to kind of be recession proof to hedge yourself against that?
Well, more than ever, and you guys get this, I think it's not just industry, it's geography. I used to think that geography meant international. Like, do I want to invest in the US? Do I want to invest in China? Do I want to invest in emerging markets? Now I'm like, do I want to have zero exposure in California? The answer is yes. And do I want to have more exposure to what I call freedom markets? So like Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, Florida. And so before even sector specific, if you're thinking about actually buying, starting a business and running one, you need to do it in markets that allow for good regulatory environments, which basically mean like protect us, keep us safe, but then kind of get out of the way. So that would be the first thing. Then the second thing that I focus on are anywhere during the recession that the businesses were allowed to stay open. It's a really weird paradigm shift that we now have to consider, that the government at any point in time could shut down your business and mandate that you lose any income source. And so I like to look at what were those industries that kept going, which is why I invest in cannabis. It's why I invest in things like laundromats, because they're deemed an essential service. So there's a list of, 35, 40 different types of businesses that are allowed to stay open. And I would do that. And heck, another friend, and maybe I have some interesting friends, but I think as it turns out, just people are more interesting than you give them credit for. I have a couple friends that made a ton of money on, oh my gosh, places to go get shots, obviously during the pandemic, and swabs. Like those little tents, you see those popped up everywhere where you could go get a rapid test. They're making millions of dollars a year, and they cost basically nothing to set up, and you set them up on the back of a doctor's insurance. So you don't even have to be a medical professional. It's wild.
Yeah, I've seen some of the ones at sporting events or concerts and stuff like that, and the line's out the door. I know some of these sporting events, it was literally like, hey, if you do this, you get a discount inside or something like that. And it makes you think, right? Like that's a weird incentive. They're obviously doing something to incentivize themselves to do that, right? So that's fascinating to hear the amount of money that's being made.
One more thing, Cody, I'm glad you brought up laundromats. So one thing that I've seen a lot with people who are selling their laundromat, right? They want to basically get away from the laundromat business. How do you think about when you're going to acquire or just even look at buying a laundromat, the managers and all of that, because most of them are family run businesses and they want to stop doing it, which is why they're selling their entire business?
Yeah, it's such a good question. People sell businesses for a myriad of reasons, but usually they're like sick, older, bored, need to move, right? Those are some of the most common. And so, how I like to think about buying a business is it's just a trade. Just because you buy a business now doesn't mean that you need to keep it forever, which is how I would have thought about buying a business even 10 years ago. I would think like, now I am a laundromatter, and all I do is I think about laundromats. And in reality, that's not the case. Instead, you could have a business for a period of time until you grow to the next one. So for somebody that was first time buying out and starting with a laundromat, by the way, I'm not like obsessed with laundromats. I just use it as an example because it's super easy to understand instead of me explaining like, oh, I do a roll up and then I add another company and then we do a reverse merger. That's like kind of a lot. So we talk about laundromats, but it could be just about anything. But I think you should think about it as this is your first little foray. And so do you want to be tied to this business for like a year, sort of figure out the business, and then get somebody in to operate it for you so you can keep a little bit involved, maybe not that involved? Or do you want to scale it and have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 20 laundromats, and then you build a business on top of it? And then you can get creative. Like we invested in one here in Austin called The Fold. And most laundromats are used at about 30% utilization, so lots of empty laundry machines. They took it up to 70 because they add wash and fold services to delivery to apartments. And so, you can add lots of different types of businesses, but I would just ask yourself, do I want to do this for what period of time? If not long, can I get an operator in place or can I sell the business?